there wasn't a lot of representation of Nicaraguans when I was growing up. The internet, it's been a great tool for different people of different backgrounds to have their voices heard.
Welcome back to the show. Hope everyone has had a wonderful Thanksgiving break with friends and family and loved ones around you. Lots to be grateful for. And we are very grateful to be back with another episode of The Creator Effect. We have the wonderful Vanessa Sirias on today as our guest. Vanessa is a TikTok sensation. She has hundreds of thousands of followers on the platform. She has really built this amazing following and really community. She talks a lot in the episode about how she views her followers really as a community because she creates content for the Latino community, and it very much hits home because it's shared experiences within the community. And this is something that I think we're starting to see very much as a theme with people, with creators and influencers who have staying power. They seem to be, one, very cognizant of the fact that the people who follow them are like their community and people who they want to build community with. And two, in this example with Vanessa, hers in particular, she's recognized that there was a need. There was a need for content that spoke to the Nicaraguan experience in the United States, how Latinos are represented in Hollywood. And so her content really does resonate with the community that she's been building. And in today's episode, we talk a lot about how she's built her following, how she thinks about creating content for them, and really what works well. So I'm going to let you hear my conversation with Vanessa. We're going to jump right into it. Here we go. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so looking forward to talking with you. First of all, you have such a beautiful voice. I
Oh.
know I was telling you right before we started talking that I went and looked at your TikTok and your Instagram, and your voice is beautiful. At first I was like, oh, is that Vanessa singing, or is that like a recording of a professional, like somebody recording in a studio? And this is you singing
Yes.
on your phone, I guess, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Are you also trying to pursue a career as a singer?
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, I've always been singing. I've always been like a creative since very little. I used to do choir when I was since elementary school. It's something that I've always loved, and I'm excited to share that side of myself with my audience as well. From they know me from comedy, but now I'm getting a little bit more into music, so I'm excited.
So comedy, let's talk a little bit about that. Is that kind of an area that has been intriguing to you? So you started your account with the idea of having comedic content?
Honestly, it just happened. I started TikTok in 2020, 2021, I believe, when everyone was getting on TikTok. We were all locked away at home. And it was just me sharing my personality. I just wanted to
Mhm.
share things that I thought were funny. I didn't really think
Mhm.
about it long term. I was just like, this is funny. Maybe somebody else will find it funny. And that's how it went about. And then I noticed that people liked to see that. People obviously needed a laugh during that time as well. So I think that my platform too.
So in terms of your growth, because your TikTok now, you have over 200,000 followers on TikTok. Tell us a little bit about how that happened for you. How did you go from zero to
Yeah.
200,000 plus?
It's been about almost 3 years now.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned, it started in 2020. And honestly, I have a background in communications and journalism. And at the time, I was working at a local news station where I'm from in Miami. But unfortunately, with the pandemic and everything, it got shut
Mhm.
down. That show got shut down. And I was just at home and thinking, what can we do? And there was something that I always wanted to do, which was social media and making content. And I remember at that time, TikTok was starting out. People were just saying, oh, it's like a little dance app. But it was actually my then boyfriend, now husband, and mother that were like, you should go and see what's up with TikTok. So I gave it a shot. and it started accumulating more views and more followers. And from there, we just have grown this great community.
Mm-hmm.
And something I wanted to do was represent Nicaraguan Americans because we don't see any of them in the media, honestly.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to represent something that I wanted to see growing up, which was a Nicaraguan American, someone who looked like me in front of the camera. And
Mhm.
I was just thinking, if I were younger, what would I've liked to see in the media? That's how it started. And slowly I've just been showing more different sides of myself to my audience. And we've grown and have a great community now. I'm very thankful to them.
Yeah. I love that you talk about your followers as a community because
Mhm.
I think that's one of the distinguishing factors for the creators like and influencers who really have the opportunity to go long term and those who don't, like who maybe are big for a little bit and then they just burn out. And one of the reasons that I think that's so important is because it shows that what you're doing is thinking about content for them, like what
Yeah.
is going to be interesting to them. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about community? What does that mean for you? Do you connect with people? Do you write them? Do you respond to comments? Tell me a little bit about how you think about fostering community with your followers.
Yeah, I think it's everything. For me, community is everything because it's the reason that I'm able to be a creator. And also, like I mentioned, I wanted to make content that wasn't there, that wasn't representing my community.
Mm-hmm.
So I always think like, what would I like to see? What
Mm-hmm.
would my friends like to see? Because the audience is just there. My community was there. They were just waiting for other people to give them the mic, if that makes any sense,
Mm-hmm.
because there are a lot of Nicaraguan Americans, and I'm so glad to see more of them coming up and more of them building a presence online because we've always been here, but we were just not represented. I
Mm-hmm.
always think of what would I like to see? What would my friends like to see? What are experiences that we want to share about our culture, our family, or just our daily lives?
Yeah, I'm appreciative of that perspective because I think too that one of the other things that distinguishes the creators, again, who have long term staying power are those who really understand what are they there for. And you are there. It sounds, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it almost sounds like what you're saying is I'm here to be in service to people who I didn't like myself, my younger self who didn't see people like me portrayed in media at all. And that's, if you think about it too, one of the wonderful kind of equalizing effects of social media. Can you talk a little bit about that and just seeing this opportunity in social media and what it means for creators?
Definitely. I feel like you mentioned it is a great equalizer. Social media being one of those is very important to me and always having that in mind. But I also
Mhm.
don't want to be the only one. So I think it's very important to embrace the community and lift up others that I see that are wanting to become creators or that are putting their content out, because I never want to be just like the only Nicaraguan American. This is just the beginning for our community. And I'm very glad to see other people do that. And even people who aren't Nicaraguan, I know there's a lot of different movements with different ethnicities, just different backgrounds in general, have had this great opportunity to make themselves be known and be shown
Mhm.
in a different way that we're not used to with traditional media. And it's great
Mhm.
because we see the audience become, they see themselves, the audience sees themselves in these creators, and it's great. I'm really excited to see how this goes on long term.
So, what is one of the best things that has come out of being a creator? What is one of the best things that has come out of it for you?
That's such a huge question for me because it has opened the doors for me. Honestly, before this, I had given up on my dream of becoming a creator, of becoming a creative. And I have a background in theater, in music, and these are all things I wanted to pursue, but I didn't see how that was going to be feasible to me.
Mm,
And once I started making my own platform, it
mhm,
really gave me, I don't know, it gave me like my life back, to be honest, because if you're a creator, a creative, you need to be in that space. If not, you become
mhm,
really sad and it's just unfulfilling. So it's really
mhm,
given me fulfillment, freedom, and just a different perspective in life.
Yeah, I love that. And I do think that's a really great point about for all of those people who the entertainment industry, the music industry is so competitive. I remember when I was younger, before like explosion of social media, when I personally did not have aspirations like that, but I had friends who did. And just to see how hard it is to break in, even when you're super talented, and now your generation has an opportunity to say, look, I don't need a record company, let's say, to give me a deal. I don't need a show to put me on their show or a production to put me in their production. I can show that I have talent and show what I can do by building my own platform.
Yeah,
It's in some ways, it's like this so very much an entrepreneurial way to approach it. And
definitely.
do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur?
Definitely. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people who aren't in the business, in the influencer business, they don't see the behind the scenes, the negotiating, the building your
Mhm.
LLC, taxes. Once you are a creator, you are a business. It
Mhm.
might seem very easy for someone who doesn't know about the business. You just turn on a camera and post a video. It's definitely a lot more than that. It's a whole business, it's a whole industry, and you got to treat it that way to be successful.
Yeah. And I would love if you could talk a little bit about the time, because
Hmm.
we know, because we work with a lot of creators and influencers, how much time goes into it and
Hmm.
energy. So it's not just the time, it's like the energy, because if you post something, people start commenting, you can't just go away. You want to engage with them because you're building community. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about how much time do you spend in a given week being a creator?
I feel like too much sometimes. Especially in the beginning of my career, there was this sense of a lot of people just gaining so much, so many followers in such a short amount of time. So it seemed like there was a small window, and if you didn't do it, then it was just never going to happen. But once you're in the industry, you learn a little more to pace yourself. I think I'm creating content all the time, even in my head. I just go around to the grocery store. I see something funny, a funny interaction happens to me. I write it down. It's just an ongoing thing, which sometimes I gotta stop. But it's something that I really enjoy. As a creative, you get inspiration from different things from daily life, so it's always in the back of my head. And once you have the idea, then sometimes if I'm going to do a sketch, I have a rough script. It depends on the type of sketches. In the beginning of my career, when I had more time, I would really go all out with my sketches, which is something I want to go back to in the future. But this required intensive script writing, editing for a long time, different characters, wigs, makeup. It's a whole ordeal. And then after that, once you post it, connecting with your audience and the
Mhm,
reshares and
mhm,
replying to as many people as you can, because at the end of the day, the content you're making is for them. And that's
mhm,
how I like to see it. And
mhm.
you want to engage with them. It's the whole reason why you're creating, is not only like to fulfill your creative need, but it's also to see other people's reaction. I feel like it's a give and take.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a sizable amount of time. Would you say like
Yeah.
a full-time job? Like a 40
Definitely.
plus hours a week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely what we hear. In fact, we hear that it could be like upwards of 80 plus hours a week, just because, as you said, it's you've got to write the whatever the content's going to be, storyboard it, script it, whatever that is. Then you've got to film it. Then you've got to edit it. Then you push it out, and then you've got to engage with the community and interact with them. So there's a lot to it. If you could talk a little bit about the platforms themselves. So you're pretty active. You're very active on TikTok. You're very active on Instagram. Which platforms are you active on? And then how do you see the platforms differently? Are they different, or is it all the same for you? Can you give us a little insight on that?
I think they definitely are all different. I have a strong presence in TikTok, Instagram. I'm building up the one on YouTube as well as
Okay.
Facebook. And I think they all have their different needs, but there is a way that a creator can repurpose the content and adapt it to each platform. TikTok, as we know, is very quick. It's more, I think of it more of like a meme page, like a quick meme type of video. And those really do. Instagram, I feel like it's a little more personal. I like sharing those types of memes, but I also like sharing a little bit more of an insight into my life as I am very active on stories and I do Q&As, or we do a cute thing which is like chisme time or like gossip time, and they my audience reveals to me some of their craziest stories or some crazy things that have happened to them or that they have heard, and we have a good time there. There is also Facebook, which is a whole different thing. And then YouTube, of course, with long format, which is something I want to be focusing up on the next year. It's, I guess, the same topic, but different ways of saying the message, if that makes any
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah. So those are the platforms you're active on and how you think of them as different from one another. When you think about how you can monetize the different platforms. So for example, I know that YouTube has like a creator payment structure based on, I guess, views maybe. Is one platform better than another in terms of how you can monetize it?
Yeah, I feel like YouTube right now, I'm still learning how to
Hmm.
work with the monetization on YouTube. I
Hmm.
believe it's more of like when you have a long video, I think that's when monetization comes in, but I don't really know that much to speak on it. I know TikTok used to have a creator fund. Instagram had this great initiative last year that they would, for each video you made or each goal, they would give the creator a certain amount of compensation. And I thought that was a great initiative. I don't think they're doing that anymore. But
Hmm.
honestly, for me personally, what I've noticed is that the best way to monetize your content is with brand deals and brand relationships. That's
Hmm.
been the best way I've monetized my content.
Yeah. So when you create a piece of content, do you know in the back of your mind, like this one's going to go viral? Do you know, or are you always just, I don't know, sometimes it will, sometimes it won't?
I feel like I do have a feeling when something will do well,
Hmm.
but I don't know when it's going to go viral. Like one of the most viral videos I made last year was a trending sound that really took off on TikTok. If you guys have heard it was Besame Mucho, and then it cut to a Toquisha song, which are both very well known songs in the Latino community. And it was inspired by another sound. So I wanted to give it like my own twist, and it did really well. I think that was the craziest video. It was less than 15 seconds. I just made the sound, and
So
it
you
has,
created the sound.
yes, yes. And right now it has 7.9 million views on TikTok. And that was
That's
insane.
amazing. So if I understand you correctly, maybe part of it is you take a trend, but put your own twist on, your own unique twist on it.
Yeah, so that's one
Right.
of my content pillars. I do have the trending sound or something that I can make my own, something I know that the audience is familiar with, but I want to make it my own so it
Mm.
fits my brand and my voice.
Mm. So let's talk a little bit about how you see your brand. Talk a little bit about what your brand is.
I think this is like an ever changing thing because the brand is really around myself, and I
Mhm.
am a person who's always wanting to evolve, to change, and to become better. At the moment, it's very based on culture. I really want to have that representation of Nicaraguan Americans. I
Mhm.
really want to give a voice to that side of my community. I also want to give a voice to Latino artists in Hollywood. I also want
Mhm.
to give my own voice as creative as just expressing my own voice literally with singing or just acting, or something I've noticed that people really is my series of Latinas in Hollywood, which kind of is a little bit of a parody or inspired by true events of what a lot of Latinas go through when
Mhm.
they're being casted or
Mhm.
here trying to make it in Hollywood, or things I just see on TV that I really
Mhm.
think are just out of touch, and calling that out. I really want to call things like that out that are not right. But I
Mhm.
think the best way to do it is in a comedic way because more people can relate to it and really hear the message in that way.
That is so smart. I think
Yeah.
that is if you think about what is going to make somebody intrigued to engage with a piece of content, it's when it's entertaining, but it's also true. And that's what you're doing. You're combining the truth with entertainment so that it's approachable. I think too, you have a very clear perspective that this is who I am, and I'm going to create content that is consistent with who you know I am. And it's not, you're
Right.
not going to do something completely out of left field that is not consistent with who you are. Is
Right.
that an important part too in how you think about which companies, which brands you're going to do sponsored deals with?
Definitely. I always try to research the brands. I always try to see if their values align with mine, if they
Mhm.
support the community. Things like this are always important when I collaborate with a brand because at the end of the day, I wouldn't feel right collaborating with a brand that doesn't have the same aligned values as me. And I know my audience wouldn't react to it as well. So it would just not make sense for us to continue as business partners.
Yeah, I want to touch on that for a second because I can't tell you how much we hear criticism of the industry, of the influencer industry,
Yeah.
that it's like every influencer or creator is just going to do something for a paycheck, like that mentality. And what we believe and have seen is that the creators who really care about having long term staying power are not going to do something that is going to annoy their audience and upset their audience because that has negative implications for them in the future. So it doesn't matter if you're going to pay them X amount of money because they're like, that's not worth it for me to lose my followers. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about how you think about that? And do you feel like this is something that creators are much more aware of and holding true to what they believe in terms of which brands they're going to work with and which ones they won't as they make money from these endeavors?
Definitely. I feel like one of the best examples is the recent strikes with SAG and the writers in Hollywood.
Mm,
There was a
mhm,
lot of creators who, including myself, who got reached out to by different studios or different to attend different premieres. But at the time, let's say if you're like myself who was in solidarity with the SAG strikes,
mm,
then you would not take on those business proposals, which
mm,
are someone can say those are great opportunities, but at the
mhm,
time it just did not align with my personal values or with my
mhm,
business values. So it was not worth it for me to. I honestly didn't want to do it, but let's say if you're a creator that wanted to do it, it's not worth it to
mhm,
sacrifice your values. Although these were like, actually, never mind. I was going to say these were unpaid opportunities. There were some paid opportunities, but
mhm.
I just I didn't go, I didn't even consider those because it just didn't align with my values
Yeah.
and with my goals in the future.
Yeah. I appreciate you talking a little bit more about that because I do think it's a misconception in the
Mhm.
industry that you can just ask an influencer to or creator to do whatever and they'll do it. I think it's also evolving to to a place where fewer and fewer people are around who will do that. Who will
Right.
just say, "Okay, whatever you want, I'll say whatever you want." Let's talk a little bit about the downside. We talked
Mhm.
about the upside, like how this has been positive in your life. I want to talk a little bit about the downside, aside from all the time and energy that it takes. We've talked with a lot of female creators, obviously, in particular, who deal with a lot of negativity in their comments, especially when they go viral. Can you talk a little bit about first, have you experienced some of that? Just seeing a piece of your content and commenting very negatively.
Yeah.
Also, from a perspective of being a woman, do you think that there are different things that women creators face that are unique to just them in terms of what people will say?
Yeah. To answer your first question, I have gotten some criticism or just some negative, hateful comments in the past. It just comes with the industry. It comes with putting your face out there. It's not something that I think is right because a
Mhm,
lot of people think, oh, you're a creator or you're a public figure. It's just part of it. You got to deal with it. It's
mhm,
not something that I think is right. At the end,
mhm,
it's very hurtful and mentally it's just it takes a toll on you, especially when you're not used to it. But unfortunately it's just part of becoming a creator, especially when you go viral. I've had things go viral and then people, there's always positive comments, which is great, but there is also going to be negative comments because once you go viral, you can't control who's going to see your content. You don't know which side of the internet it's going to end up with, and you don't know
Mhm.
if it's going to be faced with a lot of hateful comments from really negative people. So that's just part of it. And it's why it's important to not read all the comments or to
Mm.
take some time for yourself after 5 or 6, put your phone away. It's something that I try to do. It's challenging and it's
Mhm.
something I'm working on. So I can't just say, oh, I do this because
Mhm.
it's challenging. But in those times, I have had negative comments, especially when I do like parody things or like the Latinas in Hollywood. There is a lot of people who just see it as complaining or see it as they're trying to downplay whatever type of problem I'm trying to call
Mhm.
out. I've
Mhm.
had other series which are more like I have Latinas in Hollywood, and I also have the auditions, like going to an audition as a Latina and different things that I hear my friends go through or even my audience go through. And once it reaches a bigger audience, there are going to be people who are trying to minimize your message or minimize your voice. It's
Mhm.
just part of it. And that's why I think being a creator, you got to take care of yourself and your mental
Mhm.
health because
Mhm.
it's not normal to be seen by thousands of millions of people and hear their opinion of yourself by so many people. So that's just not a normal thing. And we got to just take a step back and try to find peace and in
Mhm.
yourself and not give those type of comments so much weight because
Mhm.
there is so much more positivity out there. And once
Mhm.
you're with your core community, there is so much more encouragement and
Mhm.
happiness
Yeah.
in that side.
And then the part about being a woman as a
Mhm.
creator, do you think that female creators face different types of comments than male creators do?
Yeah, I feel like that's probably, my only lived experience is as a female creator, so I can't speak on the contrary, but I am sure that we do because societally, we're just seen differently than men. We are valued more by our looks, and there
Mhm.
is a type of machismo in my culture that
Mm.
doesn't like when women speak up or talk about
Mm.
several subjects or empower
Mhm.
themselves. So there is that type of comment sometimes,
Mhm.
but I am quick to block. So I just
Yeah.
block people, or because honestly, if it's someone who's repetitively coming onto my platforms, it's just not, I don't think it's healthy. And I
Mhm.
also really try to keep my personal safety in mind. So
Mhm.
as women, we got to keep that in mind, unfortunately,
Mhm.
all the time. Your personal
Mhm.
safety, because you are a public figure, try to
Mhm.
keep all of those things private. And
Yeah.
if you see a certain account, somebody always on your account, I would just block them.
Yeah. No, and I am glad to hear your perspective on that because I've talked to female creators who tell me that they'll put out a video about, I don't know, some recipe that they created,
Hmm.
and people will start commenting on their looks. And they're like,
Yeah.
what do my looks have to do with this recipe that I made? And
Yeah.
it's interesting how as women maybe we get, as you said, people are more focused on that and willing to comment. So glad to hear that there is that block button. All right. My last question for you is what do you want to do with this longer term? Like, where do you see this all going?
Yeah, I feel like I love being a content creator. I want to continue on that path. And I also want to work on different projects. A lot of my content is acting, is singing, is producing. So I would really love to see that play out in different platforms, both for social and off social. So I really would love to act in bigger projects, to start creating music and start creating shows and
Mm,
get back into theater. At the end of the day, I am a performer
mm,
and I would
mm.
love to perform on different platforms, both online and offline.
That's amazing. Vanessa, you have so much ahead of you. Congratulations on the success so far. As you
Thank you.
said, you started in 2020. So it's amazing what you've accomplished in a relatively short period of time. So I cannot wait to see what you do next. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening. If you're an influencer or a brand that wants to work with us, please feel free to email us at info@shespeaks.com. Until next time.